I thought I felt like watching some TV, but you know, it turns out I think I'm more in a storytelling mood. So, what I figured I'd do is I'd put on one of my other playlists that I rarely listen to. It's just labeled Relax, Slow Technology. But anyway, while we're waiting on this, I thought what I would get into is the story about how I ended up homeless in Athens, Georgia. You've heard me talk about that, and I'm sure you're probably wondering about it. So I figured, why not? Let's go there, you know? Let's see. What should I do? Which one? Ah, nature. Let's go to that one. Oh, that's a short one. It's only got one. How long is it anyway? Oh, well, it's an hour long. That's cool. We'll just leave it there. We'll let that play. I don't know if this story will take an hour. I don't think so. Anyway, I was fresh up here from Arizona, bouncing around trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do with myself. You know, I had a few construction jobs. I was fresh out of the Army, excellent shape. What we say in the Army, young, dumb, and full of cum. You know, ready to go. And so anyway, work is hard to find up here, and especially if you're not from here. Nowadays it's getting easier for new people, but back when I first moved up here, it wasn't that way. You know, as much as a clanship it is now, it was more so then. And if you weren't recognized as being from here, then you were a stranger. And you know, people around here, they speak French, and you know, back then it was hard to find somebody to speak English with. Geez, now everybody speaks English. But anyway, I was having a hard time. So my uncle down in South Carolina is he has a he was working Northern Telecom. He's also a computer genius there. Anyway, at the same time, he was running a small carpentry business, and he had heard that I was good at swinging a hammer, so yeah, he invited me to come down and help him run his business a little bit, you know, work for him. And meanwhile, you know, he would teach me tricks of the trade, carpentry, you know. I was like, cool, that's all right. So we'll go down there and help him, and he helps me, and everything works out, right? Well, I get down there, and of course, my uncle is he's he's absolutely against the use of any kind of recreational drug whatsoever, alcohol or whatever, it doesn't matter, you know. Um, so it was hard enough. It was absolutely impossible for me to have been able to get marijuana, my regular medication, while I was there, because he just period would not have anything to do with it. You know? So I did sneak, start sneaking and drinking a lot, you know, whenever I could. And he wasn't happy with that either, but, you know, we didn't raise too much of a fuss. Um, you know, at first, of course, you know, things mount, tensions mount and stuff, and you know, I was doing the work that he wanted me to do, and then some, because I was doing a lot of the design work too, and so anyway, I didn't see what the problem was, but he was really getting angry about me, you know, having a drink every once in a while. So but I would drink like a 12 pack. On the weekend, you know, come Friday night or whatever, gonna take a break through the weekend, I get a 12 pack and drink that, you know. And I, of course, get loud and stupid when I'm drunk, and that aggravates anyone, you know. So he got tired of that, and you know, told me that, you know, it was Christmas time, and my grandmother Jones down in North or South Carolina, uh, I hadn't seen her in a long time, so I made plans to go visit with her for Christmas. And he told me that when I came back, I was to never have another drop of alcohol on the property, and you know, all this other. He started really hammering down on that. Well, I went on down to visit my grandmother, and while I was there, um, sounds like the stupid thing keeps cutting in and out, so I might as well just pause it and let it load a little bit, see what happens. Anyway, so while I was there, my other uncle on my father's side was visiting. His name is Robert. Robert. And him and his wife were there visiting, and so we spent the Christmas together. And while we were there, he, you know, got me to talking all about what I was doing there with my uncle Edward. And he told me flat up. He says I wouldn't put up with that shit, you know. And he says you should come down to Georgia with me down to Savannah. He says I'm the supervisor of a plant down there. I'll get you in there at $12 an hour, man. You'll be good to go. Come on down with me, man. The hell with him if he's gonna treat you like that. And you know, I said I agreed with him, of course. You know, I said okay, man. This guy's gonna be easier to work with. So I I never even went back to my uncle Edward's house. I just called him up and said, hey, I'll be back one of these days to pick up my shit, you know. And down to Georgia I went with that uncle, and get down there, and he's got his three sons and his wife in a small house, and there's no bed for me there. I have to sleep on a couch in the living room. And come to find out, he doesn't have the pull he thought he had at the plant. He isn't going to be able to get me in there. So now I'm there, no vehicle. Told my other uncle basically to fuck off, and I need a job. So I go out on foot the next day. Come across a construction site. Bing, bing, bing. I've got a job. 2 paychecks later, I've got a car. Cheap piece of shit, but it got me around for a while. But anyway, so now I've got a car, I've got a job, all right. But I'm having a hard time finding some place to live. The place is freaking loaded. There's no place available anywhere. So I'm having to stay on this couch and working, and it's not working out because they drank and I drank, and still it was impossible to find marijuana. Nobody could seem to get that anywhere. So all there was alcohol and alcohol and more alcohol, you know. So you know, that's basically the way it went. Work, drink, work, drink, work, drink, you know. And anyway, I got tired of living in that situation. You know, it was too tight, too small. It was too unbalanced, you know. So I found myself in an apartment, or actually a trailer. I found myself a trailer in a place called Donnie Tootin's Trailer Park. It's about 15 miles outside of Savannah. And by this time, I had been bouncing from all kinds of jobs to all kinds of jobs, you know, because what I would do is I'd go on, I'd have my tool bag over my shoulder, and I'd walk up to a supervisor and say, hey man, I'm a carpenter needing work, and I'd go to work. And this is the way it went for maybe 6 months, 8 months, before I finally moved over to Donnie Tootin's place. And Donnie Tootin was a plumber. Okay, now I'd never done plumbing before, but I figured, hey, you know, I'm living in his trailer park. His shop is right there. Maybe he needs somebody to work with him, you know. So I go over and I say, hey, you need anybody to work with, you know. So he hires me onto one of his crews, and I got to tell you, these guys are master plumbers, man. We did whole freaking neighborhood we plumbed in, man, in one summer. whole neighborhood we plumbed that sucker in. It's like, wow, you know. And now, because of that experience, I can do all kinds of plumbing work, you know. So I mean, I thank Donnie Tootin and his people for that. They taught me well, you know. But after a while, there I'd gotten an OUI, and uh, my car broke down, and things weren't going well. Well, I got the OUI taken care of, and I got my car junked, and so now I'm on foot again. But it's okay. I'm living there, and I'm working for Donnie. But I'm living high and loud. Now I've finally be able to get the marijuana. There's a guy right there in the trailer park selling it, so it was easy enough for me to get. But by this time, I'd fallen in love with alcohol again, you know, like I'd had in the military back in the army, and you know, so now I was mixing the two, alcohol and marijuana. And shit didn't go right, of course. It never did. Every time I introduce alcohol into my world, it falls apart, you know. So anyway, what I didn't, you know, my uncle, his daughter had moved into the trailer across from the trailer I was living in, and her husband and two daughters. Okay, and she didn't like the way I was living, so she convinced her dad to get a hold of my dad in Colorado and work out a scheme as how to get me out of there. Okay, well, they all knew that I always wanted to go back to Colorado. Okay, so one time I go over to visit with my Uncle Robert, and who decides to call? My dad. Hey, Dad, how you doing? Hey, Mark, guess what? It's a boom town over here, man. We're building houses left and right. Why don't you come up here and live with me, man? You'd do great up here. I was like, Dad, that's music to my ears, man. When did we do this? He says, well, I'm coming to visit Grandma. Why don't you go up and meet me in Athens, Georgia at the bus stop there, and I'll come down from her house in South Carolina and pick you up. It's just not too far across the border there. But I'll go and I'll pick you up at the bus station when you get there. He says, I'm going now and I'll be there. So when you get there, you know, I should be there. And I said, hey, that is cool, man. That is righteous. Well, I didn't have too much stuff anyway. And what I did have was bulk. So I just packed a bag, you know, and I took off. At this time, I was between paychecks, so it was running low. I had just enough money to get the bus ticket, a couple of meals. I was meeting my dad there, so it was okay, you know. And I get into Athens, Georgia, and I show up at the bus station, and my dad's not there, and I'm figuring, well, okay, he's probably like, you know, it's quite a ways, you know, like 4-hour drive, 5-hour drive to my grandmother's house from there, so, you know, maybe I just sit around here and wait, you know, he'll show up. So I sit there, it's like 4 hours later, and I decide, geez, man, what's going on, you know? Place is fixing to close down pretty soon, you know, they're going to be kicking me out of here. So I call my grandmother's house, and I ask her, has Dad left to come pick me up yet? She says, child, what you talking about? I said, my dad, is he on his way here to pick me up? And she says, now I haven't heard from your father in a long time there, son. She says, he isn't here right now. And I said, well, he said he was going to be there. He told me to meet him here. He was going to take, and I said, oh, Grandma, never mind. Good night. Thank you. And she says, okay, good night. And that was the last time I talked to her about that. I tried to call up here to my mother's house. Now, there was a whole bunch of stuff going on here. I don't know exactly, but I had to call Colette You know, I called, and Wayne had picked up the phone and refused the charges. So, okay. Now I'm starting to get the idea that, hey, maybe my dad isn't the only one involved with this, you know. And but now they're closing the place down, and I got no place to go. So I go up to the clerk or whatever you call him that's working there, and I tell him my situation. I said, geez, I got to find some place to go. And he says, well, if you hurry, you might be able to get a bed there at the Salvation Army. It's about 4 blocks up the road. But I'm going to tell you what, you're in a very dangerous neighborhood here, and you don't want to be caught outside with this skin color at night here. And I said, okay, man. So I grabbed my bag and I took off, man. You know, I went running up the freaking hill 4 blocks to get to this Salvation Army where they had one bed left, you know. And I walked in, and a guy's name was Tony, was checking people in there, and I go in and I tell him my situation, and he says, okay. He signs me in a bed and he tells me the rules. You know, you got to be out of here by 7 o'clock in the morning. We serve you breakfast. You get a chance to take a shower, and then you have to be out of here. And if you want to be back here, you have to be back here no later than 9 o'clock at night. I mean, no, 8 o'clock at night. You have to sign in before then, and first come, first serve. Just because you're here tonight doesn't mean you get a bed tomorrow. And I said, okay, crystal clear, you know. Well, on my run from the bus station up there, I noticed that there was a parking deck being built, a multi-level parking deck, and they had just broken the ground for it. I could tell it was a parking deck because of the way it was laid out, you know. And I said, well, if this all works out, at least I know where I can get a job, you know, because I got my tool bag with me. You know, I got my clothes and my tools. It's just my hammer and shit, you know, tape and all that. But I knew that all I had to do was show up on that job site and I'd have a job. So that wasn't a problem. Just making sure I had a place to lay my head was the problem. So that was solved. I got into the Salvation Army, and there's where it started. The turnaround in my life. It took 2 full years after that before I finally got back on my feet again, with the help of Kenny Rogers and Joanne Jones. Thank you, Joanne Jones. I do not want to forget mentioning your name. How'd you like that supper I cooked for you anyway?